with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We do have some adjustments. First one is we're going to add a custodial contract as new business for item J5. Second one is we're adding 3 appointments under section M1. Third is we're changing 2 fall coaching appointments under section M2, and we're adding 1 fall coaching appointment. The fourth is we're adding 2 transfers under section N1, and the fifth one and last one is we're adding 1 nomination under section O1.
Make a motion to accept those adjustments.
Seconded by?
I will. Amy, I
Right.
second.
Amy is seconding it. Any discussion? No? All in favor? All in favor. Okay, next is approval of minutes for Monday, June 6th, 2022, regular meeting at 6 p.m., Thursday, June 16th, 2022, regular meeting at 6 p.m., Tuesday, July 12th, 2022, workshop at 3 p.m., and Monday, August 1st, 2022, executive session at 5 p.m. Motion?
Motion to approve?
Seconded? Thank
Second.
you. All in favor? All in favor. Public comments? Nope. Okay. Communications? Nope. All right. Committee reports.
I'll start with the Sanford High School, Sanford Regional Technical Center Schedule Advisory Committee. We met at the middle of June for our last meeting, wrapping up for the summer. We reviewed the survey results, both from that were given to students as well as those given to staff. That's got us well positioned now as we start our work for this upcoming school year for our next meeting, which is going to be next Monday, August 22nd. That will be at 8:30 in the morning, and now we're going to start to take all of that data, all of that information that we have, and start building schedules that work for us. We'll be doing that with the idea that the hope and the goal is if there is going to be any recommended schedule changes, we are going to bring those in front of the school committee in the fall, early winter, just so that we can make sure that that timeline lines up with any changes that have to be made. Sanford High School is making an adjustment to their schedule this year. That's based on feedback that we came back from the surveys, as well as our committee in terms of those minor tweaks. I think we were looking at ways of saying, no, let's stop making changes and let's just let it ride. But I think it was overwhelming in terms of how these slight changes can help. And that would be adding a Spartan time to the Wednesday early release day. And it's going to be a smaller Spartan time, but it's going to help even out the schedule. It's going to help with more consistency in the schedule. And what it's going to do is that Wednesday Spartan time will be when people can assign teachers, because that was currently being done on Mondays, which ate up a significant part of that time when it didn't need that way. So that's going to be a slight adjustment that people could see coming in this year. And that was something, as I said, was from the survey results and also endorsed by the committee. But next meeting, next Monday, August 22nd, 8:30, Sanford High School, Sanford Regional Technical Center.
Thank you, Matt. Next is Sanford Performing Arts Committee, and Brett Williams will be speaking with us.
As Brett comes to the podium, just want to let people know that per policy, this is something that any of the fees adjustments are things that do have to be shared and announced with the school committee, but this is not something to be voted on.
Outstanding. The Performing Arts Center, as you all know, has a fee structure associated with its rental by outside groups. City use and school department use obviously is free. As you look at the chart in front of you, Class 1 isn't even listed on that chart because Class 1 is and will continue to be no charge for city and school groups. What we are doing, though, is as we look forward to getting the Sanford Performing Arts Center on par with the fee structures for other performing arts centers of our size and caliber, we are looking to do a modest fee increase. And what I've done on the document in front of you is have our current fee structure in green and the proposed fee increases in blue. So for each class, as you go across the chart, for Class 2, which is resident nonprofit, I'm only going to let you know what the base rental fee is because as you can see, there's an entire menu of additional items that you may or may not choose to rent or utilize at the Performing Arts Center. But local nonprofits are, the base fee there is going from $450 a day to $500 a day. Class 3 is nonprofits outside of the Sanford Springville area. That fee is going from $800 to $900. Class 4, which is for-profit entities and dance studios fall under that. That daily rate is going from $1,250 to $1,400. And finally, we've added a new class this year, which is strictly for dance competitions, because dance competitions really don't have a start and end time and they require a lot more staffing, and they're constant performances all day long. So we found that we were losing a little bit of money with the staffing on that, and so what we want to do is bring that $1,900 base rental fee up to $2,100. What this does is it moves us more in line with the, as I said earlier, the other performing arts centers in our area. We're still below, the base fee is still a little bit below what we are considered to be on par with, which is Westbrook Performing Arts Center. We're always, fielding phone calls from groups that are considering Sanford or Westbrook. The benefit that we're finding is that Massachusetts-based dance competitions, it's easier for Massachusetts and New Hampshire and Rhode Island families to come to Sanford than it is to Westbrook. We have better parking, and it's geographically easier to get to. I can tell you we're fielding requests for a single Sunday, for example. People are just, they'll do whatever they have to do to get into our venue. So, which is an interesting thing. We're finding that our Performing Arts Center has a lot of desirability for rental, and so what the fee structure in front of you does is helps us move the ball along to where we had wanted it about 4 years ago, but we said that we were going to have this strategy of easing in, and this gets us one step closer to the final fee structure that we planned for back in 2018.
Brett, do you have any concerns about people who have been renting with us all along, if this is gonna be problematic for them?
If this is problematic, I am always happy to work with a client. I would rather have a phone call with you, Matt, and say, hey, I've got a tenant who has local roots, who is not able to pay the additional fee, but I have not encountered that yet. My understanding is that our fees are still very much in line with every other venue that would be considered for a recital or a dance competition.
Brett, quick question.
Yeah.
What is the prime season for the rental, or is it just universal throughout the year?
No, that's a great question, John. So prime rental season is February vacation, right after February vacation through June 20th or so.
And then using that time frame, do you have many open dates?
I don't have any open days right now. I have one Sunday in May.
And that's it? Good job.
Except for school vacation week, yeah. So the Performing Arts Center just really It's very difficult to find a date in the spring, which is why you'll always hear school events being on weeknights, because it's easier to find a weeknight. Honestly, that's all there is, really.
I was going to ask some questions, but I don't want to interrupt. If you've got,
No.
Another 40 minutes of presentation, which I hope you don't, but.
I don't.
To you, it's a nice night. So what's the seating at Westbrook?
The seating at Westbrook is about 100 more than Sanford.
Right.
We're 854. My understanding, Matt knows probably off the top of his head, 950, 975? Yeah, okay.
One of the comments are the pricing things. It says merchandise, 20% of the gross. I mean, honor system on that, probably?
Correct.
I know a lot, but I don't know what a Marley dance floor is. Can you, probably John
Yeah.
does. He's
A
danced
Marley
in a lot
dance
of places.
floor, yeah, a Marley dance floor is a rubber surface. It's rolled up, and it was an investment that we made when we opened for dance studios to come in. So if you see a dance performance, they don't dance right on our masonite surface. It's 5-foot wide strips of that rubber rolled out dance floor that get taped together. That's an industry standard dance surface called a Marley. Yeah.
I think somebody already asked the question maybe a little differently. So you have dates that the city and schools have already blocked out, right?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so schools get a 13-month advance booking window from a certain day today. So from today's date is August 15, 2022. Schools can reserve through September 15, 2023 right now. But what we do is we always encourage school organizations to get your dates on the calendar, because you've got 1 month of exclusivity where nobody can fight you for that date. But once a 1-year mark goes by, we can start booking and receiving reservations from outside organizations to start filling up that calendar. So we get some revenue, because if we wait longer than that, then we lose those dates to other venues.
You guys just talked about one piece. I would imagine, not that somebody would have, I think of an appeals process. I would imagine you'd be just calling Matt, hey, I got an issue here. Can you help? Can we talk about it? Is that the process? If there's a
Yeah,
issue?
we're always being able to try to work together to see what we can come up with to be fair and consistent and find solutions.
Yeah, it's a constant. Yep. Okay, any questions about the proposed fee structure? Okay,
Brett, thank you. We'll probably invite you back as the fall season gets closer to have you fill us in on all the exciting
yeah, absolutely.
attractions
So our
for the
brochure
performance.
is going to press on Wednesday, and in about a month, I'll see if we can get some time to do an update of what we've got coming for our Spotlight series this year, because it's another really exciting season of like 14 or 15 touring performances coming to Sanford as well. So, all right? Thanks, gang.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to superintendent reports.
Sure, I'll step in for the student representative report. I think Jean-Paul might be out on the soccer field, I'm guessing. Our fall sports started today on August 15th. For that, I know that right now, Jean-Paul is flying solo as our student representative, so we are going to be starting that process to find, our goal is to look at a junior to be able to come and add to that. There could be recommendations or presenting candidates to you on our second school committee meeting in September 19th. Looks like that might be doable for us. In the event it's not, it'll be the first meeting in October, where Steve Boussier handles that process to a point where we will get recommendations or finalists, and they usually meet with the school committee prior to a meeting in executive session. And so we'll be moving on with that. Opening of school update. It is the middle of August. I mentioned our fall athletic programs at the high school started today. A week from tomorrow, Tuesday, August 23rd, is our new teacher orientation, where we'll have all of our new teachers come in and for a program that we found is quite successful to help get them onboarded and acclimated to the Sanford School Department. So that'll be next Tuesday, August 23rd. School committee, you are welcome to come in at the beginning of that to meet our new hires, as we'll do introductions, kicking that off. They'll be coming at 7:30 to get their ID badge photos taken, and then we'll have meet and greet and introductions at the beginning before we move into a program for them for all of that day. The following day, Wednesday, August 24th, is our, and Thursday, August 25th, our staff teacher in-service days. That's when all of our teaching staff and all of our ed techs are coming back. That will start with a welcome back kickoff for all of our staff this year. That's going to be held at the Sanford Performing Arts Center, and that'll be 8 o'clock on Wednesday, August 24th. School committee's invited to that to be able to come back and join us as we kick off the 2022-2023 school year. Those Wednesdays and Thursday workshops will go 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. We also are trying to have our open houses for our elementary and middle school students, and those students going in any transition grades, people going into a new school, if a grade's going into a new school. The high school will be doing their incoming 9th grade on Tuesday, the 23rd. Sanford Middle School will be doing their open house. They're going to stagger that so we can have the 5th grade coming in first on Wednesday, the 24th at 5. That'll be followed by grades 6 through 8 at 6. And then our elementary open houses, they will be highlighted, and that will be Thursday night on the 25th. And then the first day of school for grades 1 through grades 9 is going to be Monday, August 29th. And then we also will have our kindergarten starting on Wednesday, the 31st, along with pre-K at that time. And then the pre-K that we had to move from Head Start to Sanford Pride, to get that classroom set up, will be starting the following week after Labor Day, but Steve will tell more about that in his report. So that's the opening of school update. We're excited and looking forward to another school year coming our beginning and coming our way. I did want to make mention that the U.S. CDC released updated COVID-19 guidance for schools last Thursday. That is good news for schools. The Department of Education, Maine Department of Education, is still reviewing that updated guidance, but basically you remove the recommendation to cohort, change the recommendation to conduct screening testing to focus on high-risk activities during high COVID-19 community level or in response to an outbreak. They remove the recommendation to quarantine, and that includes in schools. Removed information about test to stay, and added detailed information about wearing a mask, managing cases and exposure, and responding to outbreaks. Basically, that's no change for us to how we ended our school year and how we plan to go forward. We are expecting that guidance from the Maine Department of Education to come out with that, but I see it as all positive news for us going forward with COVID-19. Okay, and then I do want to mention about hiring. First off, I want to give kudos to our interview teams at our various schools. We do have some open positions. People might have seen the article recently in the Portland Press Herald about openings, and so we are also in a situation where we are working hard to get all of our openings filled. With that, I'm feeling pretty comfortable as we continue to interview people and hire people. I met with a few people today that will be joining our team in the coming weeks. So the positions we're still looking for is a school psychologist at Carl J. Lamb, 7th grade English language arts teacher at the middle school, a SEAL teacher in the special education program at the middle school, also a life skills teacher at the middle school. We need an English language arts teacher at Sanford High School. That's an ESSER position. Still looking for a bridge teacher, and we are looking at ed techs throughout pretty much all of our schools and still need of ed techs. and also bus drivers and monitors. Steve will be giving us an update on transportation as part of his report, but I know we have, Ledgmere has some of their people who are waiting to get their approval to drive the bus, and while they're waiting, they are going to be monitors, and also have some custodian openings that we're working hard to. We're doing to try to advertise in some different places to try to get that word out to people. Food service is also working hard, and I think you're going to find that a lot of our positions do work out and line up well with the school day for people who are, that may work out for. So there are openings that people can come and reach out to our website to be able to help us, and we'll continue to work hard. We've been working as an administrative team the last couple of weeks, and we are working on backup and contingency plans so that we can be ready to open school that way. For a construction update, a couple things. I accompanied our fire marshal and code enforcement office for an inspection of the Willard School last Friday to get a certificate of occupancy for the upcoming community adult education and our bridge program move from Anderson Learning Center over to Willard School. Overall, that inspection went very well. We didn't get our certificate of occupancy yet. There are a few minor things that do have to get fixed up before our bridge students will be coming in later this month. We are looking at moving the fingerprinting that takes place at community adult education. That'll be the first thing that's going to be moved over to the Willard School. Kudos to our custodians and maintenance people. This has been something we've been planning and meeting starting all spring and all throughout the summer with Don Nichols and Jason Dudley from our Facilities and Maintenance Department, Lisa Blanchette and Jane Perkins from Adult Education, and Stacy Bissell from the Bridge, as we're getting ready to be able to come back and make that move. Also, big thanks to Carrie Hansen, our Director of Technology, who's helping to be able to get that facility ready. So we are moving forward with that. Also, kudos to Sanford Middle School. We have contractors in who are working on, we're getting the drywall over the orange lockers and the peach tile. And so they've been working hard, contractors getting that. Our painters have been coming in, following them along. And so that's coming in nicely. First floor is ready to go, and we're hoping to have second floor finished up by Thursday or the end of the day on Thursday. And then finally, today I met with the Maine Department of Education in our legal counsel to discuss the closing out of the high school and Srtc construction project. I did have a conversation recently with the owner of the company that was the contractor for the project, and they are not planning on signing our latest change order. So we've been looking at our different options, and so right now the plan is to send a letter to the contractor acknowledging that the project was substantially completed, but the punch list is not completed fully. We will include funds, the small funds that we owe them, and then let them know that our plan for the project is to close it out, unless, of course, they would like to mediate that process. And so we feel that's the right course of action for us under the circumstances, and so we are working on putting that letter together. So that is the construction update. And then finally, any questions before I move into either on the construction update, hiring, or opening of school?
Amy's got a comment.
I just wanted to clarify the open houses, because I had written something differently. So, and I'm hoping that these are, because I think that's what you said. Just to clarify, the middle school open house is on next Wednesday, the 24th, and then the elementaries are the following night on the 25th.
Correct.
Okay, that'll make a lot of families happy, because
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of confusion that they were all happening on the same night, which caused some
Yep.
angst.
Right.
And one things we were trying to do is, for those families, I do ask for their grace and their patients, as they may be coming into classrooms that may not be at that time fully up and ready to go, because that's why you'd wait till after the end of the second in-service day. We were looking at staggering some of those times, but we recognize that, you know, you're going to have families that have people in multiple schools, not like we used to. Our new elementary setup is very helpful for that, but there may be people who have students in an elementary school as well as the middle school. And so this is going to be an opportunity where breaking that up is our plan. Okay, and then as Steve gets ready to come up for his report, I do want to talk about school safety, because school safety, I want to reiterate to our stakeholders and our public that school safety is always our biggest priority, and it will continue to be our biggest priority. With events that were happening in schools, especially last spring, that is really forced us to make sure that we're constantly looking at our policies and looking at our procedures and looking at what we have in place to make sure that they are updated, that they're the latest in terms of what best practices are. And so that's going to be something that you're not just going to see us say at the beginning of the school year, we did our school safety thing and call it good. School safety is going to be an ongoing agenda item for us. That I think you'll see that everywhere from school committee meetings down to central office team meetings to administrative team meetings, right on down to staff meetings, for us to be able to come back and do that to make sure that our procedures are evolving, as I said, with the latest research. We've already begun that work in terms of looking at that, and I think this is a nice segue for Steve to kind of continue to give a little bit of an overview regarding school safety.
Can I just jump in real quick to say that, to let everybody know that Steve Boussier is going to be talking to us about a lot of things. School safety, pre-K, transportation, summer programming, the Title I Jumpstart, and summer food service. All you.
I do have quite a list this evening, but I'll try to keep it short and succinct. So some of the work that we did over the summer did have to do with school safety, and that work started back in June when the administrative team met for our retreat. The administrative team at that time began to review our crisis emergency plan for the district. That work continued through the summer. Our safety committee met twice the month of July to review our safety plan, and the administration has picked that work up in August. So a lot of work has been done to that. So I'd like to thank the administrative team, member of the safety committee, for taking some time out during their summer to join us, and the SROs. Joe Jourdain has been, and Paul, they've been on the road, but they have been a valuable asset if we've worked through this. So as we look at school safety, it's very easy to look at one specific item for school safety. Really, as an administrative team, taking a broader lens or look at it with staff. And really that school safety begins with really are the items in our school up to date? Are they safe? So that goes for, our flooring. Is the floor, losing my train of thought. Is the floor do we have any bumps, or is somebody going to trip? So trip, slips, and falls, that type of stuff. Moving into, on a daily basis, are our exterior doors locked? Making sure that those doors are locked, making sure that they are propped, making sure that visitors are entering through the main entrance. Those are things that we know are in place. We just need to be very vigilant with staff to make sure that those things are happening, and with students. In our buildings, we have a video entrance system. So anytime somebody comes and enters our building, we have a video. You have to press a button. We look to see who comes in. We have to make sure that we're asking questions before, what brings you to school today? Who are you here to see? And doing that screening. We're going to have that conversation tomorrow with our administrative assistants when we meet with them as well, because they play an important piece of this. Throughout our schools, we have camera systems. With the construction projects we have put in, we have cameras both inside and outside of our schools, so we're able to keep tabs on who's in our building and what they're doing. We mentioned visitors when they come in, making sure that they they grab an ID badge if they're going someplace, making sure that they're signing in with our staff, making sure our staff are wearing ID badges at all times. And the big thing is, if we see something that doesn't look right, say something. That goes for students and with staff. And I can't stress that enough, that this spring when we ended school, you know, there were some situations that came up where somebody said something and we were able to help the person. So I think that's a big thing. And then underlying this is our SROs. They play an important part in our buildings. They're housed at the middle school and the high school, but they are within a phone call away if we need support. And so they lend support to elementary levels, and if they're not available, they find somebody who can help us. So I think just a broader lens on school safety, just making sure with our staff that we're being vigilant on those things that we already have currently in place. Part of the work we did this summer was talking about if we have a critical incident, as a building level, as a district, how are we going to respond? And so the building administrators have been working through identifying who are the people on their staff that are going to be involved when there is a crisis, what are their roles, what are their responsibilities. We've also talked about evacuation sites. So if we have to evacuate to an off-site campus, where are we going to go? So that's the work that the administrative team has been engaged in with that. Now here's the big one. We talk about not focusing in on a specific incident. Well, I'm going to focus in on a specific incident, and that has to do with lockdowns. Lockdowns are a procedure that we use in our building, that we practice drills when there is a violent incident. And our procedure right now in our schools is you get to the nearest classroom, you lock your door, close your shades, and you wait for someone to come to let you know the all clear. We know as we examine incidents that have happened across the country, that is a good tool in some situations, but there are situations where there are other strategies we can use that would help protect students and staff. And so we did some research, and this is really, we've had conversations over the past couple of years with this, but we really did some in-depth research, and we've decided to move to the ALICE model, which is a research-based program that takes a multi-option approach that can be used by anyone and anywhere in the face of violence. So teaching our students and our staff, if you are in the shopping mall, if you are out on a walk on the trails, what are the strategies you can use if you come up with a violent incident? So that's the model, that's the philosophy we've sort of been moving towards. Joe Jourdain is our resident expert in the district, and prior to Joe, we had Mike Gordon, who is also a trainer. And so Joe, this summer, he trained members of the safety committee that were available, and he also trained some of our administrators on what this looks like. Part of the training model for the ALICE program is a train-the-trainer model. And so we looked for training that was available this summer. We have Paul Goldsmith and 2 administrators that will be going Wednesday and Thursday this week to full-day training, 8 to 5 in Cumberland, where they will be trained with the ALICE model. The next week, during our staff days, safety is going to be a priority, and we were going to train staff on the basic philosophy of the ALICE model, just to give them a heads up. This is important. This is where we're going. And then we'll do some follow-up training with staff as we practice our drills throughout the year. And like Matt said, I see this being an ongoing topic of conversation in our staff meetings with that. And also with students. In grades, as you get in students' grades, I would say 7 and up, really doing some type of training with students as well. They will be involved, and with the younger grades, it's more about helping students follow the teacher's direction. You follow the teacher's direction and you do what the teacher's asking you to do. So training, they'll be involved next week. In addition to all of that, we also have worked to roll out what's called the Alertus app for staff. Alertus app is a way we can communicate a lockdown to staff in a quick manner. There may be a time when a staff member is traveling between buildings and they go to enter a building, and it would be nice for them to know that something's going on. And so the Alertus app is a way that we can communicate the initial event, but then it also will allow us to communicate details as we go along. So we're working on rolling that out to staff, making sure that staff had access, and then we will, once again, we'll be practicing those during the drills that occur throughout the year with that. So in September, I will have the crisis plan, the written version for you to look at and to approve the updates that we've made, and also provide some greater depth, greater detail into the Alice model, just so you guys can have a better understanding of what that is all about. But for us, I think staff have been asking about what are we going to do. They have said we need some changes here. We don't feel safe with this, and so that's part of what brought this on. And I think staff will be well received by staff, and I think this will help our students and staff feel safe when they come to school. With that, I just want to say, crisis. When we think of work that's been done in our crisis plan, work was done in our crisis plan when we had the Safe and Healthy Students Grant. Way back when, I think 12 or 13, maybe even 14 years now. So the structure of our crisis plan was it was well done. And so as we have reviewed the crisis plan as years have gone on, Matt did it when he was assistant, and I did it a couple of years ago. Our structures are in place. So I feel very confident in what we have in place in terms of safety. So any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay, pre-K. 3 weeks from tomorrow, we'll be welcoming pre-K students into our classrooms, which is very exciting. When I last spoke in front of the school committee in June, we were looking great. Enrollment we're looking good with enrollment. We had staff on the school department end of things. Since then, we've had some challenges. One of the challenges has to do with Head Start. Head Start, as they looked for staffing, they were unable to secure a teacher for their second classroom. If you remember, we contract with Head Start for 2 classrooms. They have a teacher for one classroom. The second classroom, they were unable to find somebody. Not for lack of trying. They advertised, they held some interviews, but at the end of the day, it came August 1st, and they didn't have a teacher. In addition to not having a teacher, they also did not have the enrollment that they needed to fill that second classroom, because part of Head Start is being income eligible. So we made the decision. We knew this was a possibility in July, so we started thinking in our heads, what are we going to do if this happens? Because we would lose state subsidy. For every kid we don't have the seat, we'd lose state subsidy, but also that would have an impact on the money that we would get from the grant. So looking at our kindergarten numbers, we were able to reduce the number of kindergarten teachers we had and create another pre-K classroom at SPE. The staff member that we hired has experience with pre-K. She's been on our pre-K advisory committee, and it was something that she wanted to do. So that was, if we didn't have that person, this would not have been possible. So I just like that Bonnie Carmen, who I think is on the agenda tonight, if you see her, tell her thank you. So we created that classroom. We ordered supplies and furniture in July, knowing that if we needed to move in this direction, we need the furniture and supplies. And if we didn't use it this year, we know we have it for next year as we expand. It's on its way. The supplies are on its way. The furniture is on its way as well. So in terms of enrollment, that's the biggest piece. Where are we at in terms of enrollment? MCS is full at this time. Carl Lamb School is full at this time. Head Start has a classroom of 16 kids. They're full at this time. And at SPE, we have, as of this afternoon, we had 10. And we have, since the word has gone out that we have an opening, we've been receiving some calls. We have had some kids move out, some kids move in, some family situations change, so we have also had people drop out. But enrollment is we're looking okay at the moment with that. Any questions in regards to the additional classroom before I do the second part of pre-K?
No.
Okay, so the logistics part of it, the furniture is now in the classrooms. If you get a chance to go into the schools, it's pretty cool. Don't try to sit in the chairs. They're way smaller than kindergarten chairs. I was joking when I was over at Lamb today, because the kindergarten room, I used to go in and sit in the chairs, uncomfortable, but you could do it. Cannot do that in the pre-K room chairs. So the furniture has arrived for those folks. The supplies have arrived for those folks. There are some additional supplies we'll need to order, some additional furniture, but they have what they need to begin the year. Over the summer, they spent 2 days of training on August 1st and 2nd up at the Maine Department of Education for a full day training. I was very pleased. We had all the teachers went for pre-K. We brought along the ed techs who added a great deal, and all the administrators went. So that's a big ask in the first week of August, but staff did that, and it was great. And then next week, they will have training for the assessment tool on the 25th. And after that, we have screening. When kids come back, we have screening on the August 29th and 30th. So everything's looking up. It's exciting. It's coming together. Amy?
If a family were to want to try to, for the openings at Pride for the pre-K, who would they call? Would they call the Pride School, or would they call central office?
Central office.
Okay.
Yep.
And what is that phone number?
32, press the button, central office. 207-324-2810.
Thank you.
Yep. And that, I would say, pre-K, even if they're interested in MCS or CGL or the vocational center, they should still call and get their name on the wait list, because I do anticipate additional people. We always have first day, somebody doesn't show up, so continue to call. Transportation. I think Matt already mentioned this, but staffing is a concern. Ledgmere has advertised on the streets, social media. They are down 4 drivers from our contract. We were contracted to have 19 large bus drivers for the large buses, and we are down 4. That's concern. They have combined some of the routes. We were already down last year, but they've lost a couple more. So they've combined some routes, which is going to increase the ridership time for students. I spoke to the district manager from Ledgmere, expressed our concern for that. They have hired, as of last Friday, they've hired 4 monitors that are going they're in the pipeline to be drivers. And so they hopefully by October, we'll have some additional drivers, and we'll be able to, add some buses to our fleet. But it is a challenge with that. The athletic drivers, we have 2 athletic drivers solely, and they're currently working on that schedule. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah.
So you said the word contract, and I'd written that down earlier. We have a contract with whatever the, yeah, but somebody owns Ledgmere. It's a different name. But are they performing to contractual obligations?
I will say they are performing to contractual obligations in terms of their service, I feel, and their willingness. I think they are putting in everything they can to get us the drivers they need. The piece that I pushed on them a bit this week, or last week, I've been pushing all summer, but last week was, I said, you're not meeting our contract. And we're up for a renewal at the end of the year. We need to work to get the drivers into seats. They are working on their collective bargaining agreement on their end in terms of what they're paying their drivers. They have increased that, and that was in their ratification process. So that's the other piece of it that they were working on to get folks.
I think we all know that the whole transportation system in this country is fragile. And it doesn't matter what you're delivering. Everyone is, yeah. We're in it, and it's fragile on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, part of them, John, part of them bringing in the monitors, having those 4 people be monitors, that's a change in strategy they used. Before, you had to wait to come on board until you had your driver's license. So now they're coming on to be monitors. They'll learn the ropes in hopes that they'll stay and they'll get their CDL to drive. But we're working on it. Yeah.
It was just a contractual obligation, and I feel for them. It's a bad situation.
Yeah. So information for buses will be coming out this week. The routes themselves will be on the website. in paper format, similar to what we've had in the newspaper in the past. We will also send out a text message to parents, letting them know that they can go on Versatrans and enter their student ID number twice, and then that gives them their exact stop and the times. So that's the information that we're able to get out to parents. So in terms of bus information, it is a little bit later than normal, but I think once parents get it, it will be as accurate as it can be for the time being. Transportation. Okay. It's been a busy summer. It's been a busy summer. Summer programming.
Steve,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about the impact that that's going to have on the dismissal time?
Oh, yes, yep. So sorry, thanks, Matt. The dismissal time, we tried to move the dismissal time at the middle school and the high school to be 2:20. Last year, because of COVID, they were dismissing more at like 2:05, pushing 2:05, I'll say. That was right around the time. So with that, in order to get the buses to the elementary schools to start at 3, they had a hard time in meeting that timeline. So we had to push back or push up the dismissal time at the middle school and the high school to 2:15. So we cut 5 minutes off the day to try to help with that. Now we're going to look at that, see how it goes. It may need further adjustment, but that's where we've landed at the time being. If you know anybody, there's a specific demographic of bus drivers. Anybody who's retired that is looking for something, only working the school days, that you're not looking for something full-time, it's perfect. Older moms or dads of middle school or high school kids where your kids can supervise themselves, perfect. If you're looking for part-time work during the school year, perfect. So if you know anybody out there that meets that demographic, let them know. Give Ledgmere a call. Summer programming.
Steve,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm still on transportation. Would it be helpful for families to have an opt-out option? So all bus students go into a collective pool, but lots of bus students don't necessarily take the bus.
Yep.
So would that be helpful in helping to reduce or better maximize what we have?
I think when they plan their routes, they're considering that not everybody's going to ride. And so what happens after that first day or two, they will look at, okay, who's on the bus, how many kids they have, and then they'll make those adjustments.
Okay.
They do it on the fly. Doing it before probably would have been a good idea, but that's the way we've always done it in the past.
Yeah, just food for thought for maybe the future, because like we live on a cul-de-sac, and I think you guys account for probably 8 kids on that bus. Nobody takes the bus.
And to get also on that, Jen, is they also work on previous years. So previous years, when they know somebody doesn't take a bus, they don't have them on their list. So, yeah. Anything else on transportation?
Have we also, can coaches drive the bus if they get their CDL?
If coaches have their CDL, they could drive our buses. We have a minibus at the Srtc.
They would have to be a Ledgmere employee to drive the Ledgmere bus?
Yeah, at this time,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, summer programming. We had a busy summer with education here in Sanford. Jumpstart and Title I. We served over 120 students in grades K through 4. Nearly roughly 30 incoming kindergarten students. Really few hiccups with that program. I'd like to thank Ellie Merrick, who's retired, who's run summer school for a number of years. She did a bang-up job with that. And the Jumpstart program this year, Angie Labby and Caitlin Brunel, they did a great job as well. All indications are it went awesome, and we serviced a lot of kids. Special education, the same thing. Strong participation this year. Their numbers are stronger than ever. They did extend their program this year. Usually they go 4 weeks, and they did go 5 weeks this year. And Jed Russell, the high school teacher at the math, did a bang-up job for that food service, it's amazing when you stop and think about what they did. They served just under 27,000 meals this summer. In speaking with Holly, that is a very, very strong summer in terms of numbers. Lower than the pandemic years, but stronger than pre-pandemic with that. Holly ran into a couple of hiccups with the food service this summer with the federal waivers. We started our food service back in June, and then the federal government approved our waivers the first week of July. So people were able to now take their meals off-site. Some of the eligibility loosened up, and so she had to sort of navigate that. All in all, a really good summer with food service. Very few hiccups there. It's important, as I finish on my report here, it's important that families complete that free and reduced lunch application, because that is what allows summer food service to happen in Sanford by our free and reduced lunch numbers. So as we begin the fall and you're in your social circles or see people at the soccer fields, make sure that they fill out those forms for free and reduced lunch.
And I'll add to that we will have a campaign about that, because as the school committee is well aware, we were able to secure significant state funding subsidy when we were looking at the economically disadvantaged. But remember, with the state now having free lunch and free breakfast for all students, that has really been a demotivator for people to fill out the free and reduced forms. And even though we have economically disadvantaged, that does not work for Title I. That needs to be built off of the free and reduced forms. So we're understanding that, that for us, as Steve mentioned, that Title I programming that is so important for our students is at risk. So we are going to be putting a campaign together that we are going to be reaching out to all of our families and stakeholders, encouraging them to complete those forms. That encourage is going to be on the borderline between encouraging and bothering and harassing people. And so I apologize in advance, but it's only being done because we need to make sure that we have everything that we can in terms of that paperwork for that.
Matt, sorry, John. Would it be possible to get those forms, maybe we could have volunteers at the school collecting those at the open house? Because they're pretty quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's part of, it's going to be, we're lucky because they don't have to be in September. We have some time. So it's going to be some of those things that you're probably going to see multiple areas where that's going to be out there for people to do for them.
Sure, Matt or Steve, so that's a federal program, right? Isn't that, so good intentions, yet here's a hiccup because of good intentions.
Yep.
Isn't that really reaching out to our elected officials for that? Which would take 4 years to correct, I understand, but is the DOE or people already working on that?
Yeah, that's been something that we've been pushing against, and even through those best efforts, they haven't been able to get a waiver or something for us to be able to use that. It's still built on that model and that paperwork for it. So yeah, absolutely a good thing that we're providing free breakfast and free lunch for all of our students, but it's also going to have to be us getting that paperwork, and sometimes that's hard for families to say, wait a minute, I'm already getting it free. So it's going to be a concentrated push and effort on our side.
I'm going to turn it over to Beth, who's going to talk about some other summer programming that we did.
Nice and clean for me, like that, great. Smells nice and lemony fresh. Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to follow up and talk to you about some of the enrichment activities that we offered some students this summer. The first happened the very first week of summer, and that was band camp. So there was a combination of middle school and high school band students, and the number was 79 that they had attend this year. What's really nice is they had 8 specialists that came in, so each section of the band, whether it was woodwinds or percussion, they each had a specialist that worked with them during the week to kind of help fine-tune their skills. The kids had a great time. The second enrichment we had was drama camp for the middle school. Last year, Adam Belfay had 9 students. This year, he had 19. And they had a really good time, and he sent me some great pictures, and I will make sure that I share them with you at a later time. And then finally, we also hired 4 staff members to work with the rec department again this year at their day camps. So what we decided to do, we changed it a little this year from last year. All 4 teachers went and spent 1 week at each of the 4 camps. So they worked for 4 weeks, and each week was at a different camp. And they did grade level activities, they built rockets, and did all kinds of STEM activities. The kids had a great time. And during some of their, we had them work in a schedule. You know how we purchased books for all students to take home for this summer? We had extras. So we had them go to to Carl J. Lamb and to Pride to let the kids pick more books. So they told me this story. There was, I think, 6 boys. They were in 3rd grade at Pride. So it was their turn to come in and check out the books, and they were all like, we don't read, we don't need books. And then they saw that they had some graphic novels. So they're like, yeah, whatever, we'll pick, you know. And then when the teachers were leaving at noontime, when their day was done, the 6 boys had climbed up to the top of the climbing structure, and they were all hanging out there reading their graphic novels. So, so that made them very, very happy. So those are just some of the enrichments that we had this summer. And we also had some professional development, but I'll talk about that probably at the next meeting when it's all wrapped up. Let you know what we did this summer. So, any questions?
No questions? Okay. I love that story. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to new business, and as I mentioned when we first started, we've got 5 different items to discuss. First one is the Memorial Gym, discussing building to be returned to the city's care.
Sure. So as we've been working through all of the different construction that's been impacting the Sanford School Department, when we moved out of Willard and moved over to Sanford Pride, that freed up the Memorial Gym that had been used for Willard's physical education program, but it was also something that we were using within our district. So we're in a position now where that is at a place where that facility, a wonderful facility, one with a great history, it can now be turned over to the city and the recreation department to be able to take on that facility, which would also be the management of that. This has been a topic, as Paula and Amy know, at our leadership team meetings with the city. And so the process is, that's something that we as a school committee, we have to vote to return Memorial Gym to the city on our end, and the city also has to be able to vote on their end to accept that. And so that's something that they're working through their process on their end, and I expect that probably to be done and accomplished in September. And so that's kind of like the steps that have to take place, and so we're the first step, and we have to vote to return the Memorial Gym, its care and custody and control over the city of Sanford, pending their formal acceptance on their end.
Hey, Matt, I got a quick question for you. Have we made accommodations for the bridge program during the school day?
Yes, it won't be able to impact the bridge, and working with Stacy Bissell, they're going to be able to get the necessary stuff that they need. One thing that's been helpful is we have a nice collaboration with the city, and especially the recreation department, as they offer their programs coming into our schools. So there are going to be some things that is going to also be a share coming back and forth to be able to do that. So as we met, that was one thing that we'd be looking at. We also see this as a golden opportunity for some of the Sanford community and adult education to also, with their location being there, to possibly be able to collaborate and combine some of that. Also, I know that the batting cages for our high school softball and baseball teams are located at Memorial Gym, and that's something that we're going to continue to be able to utilize even with this turning over the city. It's just that's part of the collaboration that we do. In the summer, when they use our schools for their programming, that's just a continued collaboration that we have.
So I'm looking for a motion. Motion by John, seconded, please? Sure? I don't know, I'm looking specifically at you, sorry. Seconded by John Mapes. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All in favor.
Next up under new business is substitute pay rates. That's something that obviously we're paying attention to. As we mentioned before, with some of the staffing challenges that we're having, that also extends itself down to also substitutes with that. So I think if we can, I'll turn that over to you, Cheryl, and see if we can be able to bring that up.
There we
And Cheryl, you can walk us through that and the changes.
So as you can see, we've done a lot of changes this year. The teacher daily rate, we're changing to 110, 125, and 130. We've made a distinction between people with a teaching degree and a retired teacher. Feeling that a retired teacher pay a little bit extra, a little extra, because of having that teacher being, having a lot of experience. So we're trying to entice some of those retired teachers to come back and do substitutes. Ed techs, we didn't change by much. We only changed the higher side of it just because we had increased that during COVID. But we really want our retired teacher to take a teaching substitute versus an ed tech substitute. So we wanted to distinguish the amounts difference for that. The long-term daily rates, that's actually a contractual amount that we actually use for that. And then long-term ed tech subs are the same as a regular ed tech sub.
And we look at long terms just because in that there's more responsibility. That also includes planning, lesson planning, as well as grading that takes place. So that's why you will see that they increase for that rate in comparison to the other rates.
So when setting these rates, we actually called our normal schools that we put ourselves next to make sure that we were similar and not a huge difference.
Jen
We
has a
did want to
question.
make sure we're higher a little bit on a couple of them because we're really trying to get some substitutes because we're lacking right now in substitutes.
So when you're getting a long-term sub, how are you differentiating that? Meaning, sometimes it's planned for, sometimes it's not planned for, meaning, if someone is out on paternal leave.
Yep.
My question would be, if you know that that person is going to enter into that long-term sub and referencing the planning that Matt just referenced, why do we hold them to that 20 days? Why do we not start them out on the long-term sub rate from the first day if they're entering into a long-term sub agreement?
If we know they're definitely going to be like maternity leave or something like that, we will start them right on it.
Okay.
However, there's those ones that are, we're going to assume they're only going to be out for a couple of weeks, and then it ends up turning into a month, which then turns into 3 months. Those are the ones that we do the 20 days for. But if we know 100% that they're going to be out for more than 20 days, we usually start them right out at that.
And do we
sometimes it's because we didn't get the notification at central office to know that, too.
Do we advertise that? That differential in pay, for example, for paternal leave?
It would just be they have to get over the 20 days. But I think it depends also. Sometimes people don't sign up for the long-term ones, and then they end up in it. So I think it all depends on how.
I don't think we advertise it, though. I think that's probably a point that we might be able to look at in terms of, especially depending on what we're getting for interest in doing that. So I'm not sure. I know there's some people who like the idea of subbing where they don't have to do it every day. They like the idea of some of the flexibility, that's where they may want to not get into a long-term. But that's something we can look at in terms of, in any of those postings, that we can make sure that that difference is in there with it. Now, oftentimes, when we are having those openings, obviously, the applicant pool is going to be important, but some of the things we look at is the current subpool, because there may be some people in there that would be able to be good fits for that.
Because I know at the beginning of COVID, when we started coming back into the school, we had one that we had a discussion about and said, this one's really going to be a long-term sub because that teacher asked for a year off. We started them right out at the long-term sub rate from day one.
Yeah, I see both
Yep.
sides. I'm just looking at
Yeah.
it from the perspective of consistency. You know, if we have the opportunity, if people had the information and it offered more consistency and what we know to be a 6-8 week long-term sub position,
Yeah.
we might get a different candidate if they didn't have that 20-day wait period for the rate of pay.
Yeah.
So just food for thought.
John?
First, a comment. I mean, I think when John and I began the retired teacher, there was no differentiation. I remember a couple of retired teachers asking me, as a school committee member, you ought to do something about that. It's doubled in my short stint here. The other comment was on that 20-day thing. I would maybe say, if it turns into 20-plus days, maybe it's retroactive to day one.
Sure.
So.
Yep.
Yep.
So moving on to our other sub rates that we're looking at, we called a lot of our neighbors and the schools that we look at ourselves next to, and a lot of them are starting the people out at the lowest portion, on the lowest step of a union contract for the sub rates. So we decided to take that methodology all the way across for the most part. There were a couple of small differences in food service. We didn't do that for, because if someone comes in and they're only going to be a substitute, there's a lot more training because they're not always there every day. And so that takes a while for them to get up to speed. And so once they get up to speed, they get moved up to that experienced rate, but not until Holly deems that they are ready and they've been considered experienced. So we just changed that methodology some, and you can see that I noted that in there. The rates for the custodial rates are based off the contract that you guys are voting on, so. And then maintenance, we just did the no experience because we felt like we needed to increase that amount a little bit, because we've not really had anybody willing to do the $16 an hour. So we increased it, hoping that we can get some activity there. So we've struggled trying to get custodian subs, so I'm hoping with the higher rates that we can try to actually get a sub pool. That's what we're really striving for.
Yeah, I think you'll see here as we landed on these rates in the proposal, a lot of it has to do with securing, but also paying attention to the competition that's around us to make sure that at the end of the day that we are not having that be a factor in terms of people deciding to go, to be interested for it.
So, recommendation to approve the substitute pay rates is presented for the 2022-2023 school year. So moved by John Rue, seconded by Amy. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All in favor. The next topic is May 2022 financials. Cheryl, back to you.
So I'll start out with the dashboard, as I have been recently, and not going through the word-for-word memo. Dashboard, as you can see, we're running just slightly below budget for expenses. I actually did a calculation, and I'm hoping to end the year between 175 and 325 in compared to revenue and expenses. So federal grants, we're at $2.7 million worth of revenue for these items and 2.1 million in expenses. We're doing very good on collecting those. We are up to date. The only one we're holding off on is June until we do the teacher accruals, and that will happen hopefully by the end of this week when we do payroll. Enterprise fund is $2.1 million worth of revenue and $2 million worth of expenses. ESSER funds, we're only at $1.8 million of revenue and $4 million in expenses. We have finally starting to see them approve our invoices. We've seen activity, so it's been great. We got one of our big ones approved Friday, and right now one of them is sitting as in process, so that we're hoping that there's activity, and Phaedra is getting ready to put in the next one, so we're looking forward. We're finally seeing some movement there, so they must have done some hiring, so that's exciting. Other major grants, we're at $0.4 million worth of revenue and $0.5 million worth of expense. One big piece on that is the RUS grant, and that was billed out last week. So that was good. And there was actually a billing done that we just found out about that we didn't have put in. So we got another one coming in. For cost centers, Article 1, we're below budget, mostly due to doing the teaching accruals, and we get a little pieces here and there, but some of it's timing. So I feel like they're going to be very close to budget at the end. Article 2, Special Ed, also going to be probably almost at budget. It's going to be right there with my estimates that I've been doing, so they're right about a budget. Same thing with CTE. They did a bunch of purchasing at the end of the school year, so we're going to find that they're going to be right at budget also. I think that one, my estimate is $700. But that's not me estimating the teacher accruals, so that's a little bit, it could be a little different. Article 4, we're right there. That one actually, we have a fair amount still sitting there. I think that one actually is going to be under budget a little bit. Article 5, we're right about a budget there too. I mean, gee, there's just not a very big spread in between. Article 6, we're a little over budget, and that's legal fees. And yeah, we've talked about that a lot. So that's the only thing I'm kind of worried about right now. Article 7, that one's right at budget. We're a little bit over budget, but that one's going to be fine because I've already finished that one out for the school year. So we'll be all set there. Article 8, we're way below budget. Some of that is due to not running certain buses, having some of the pieces like, wasn't field trips because field trips go through a different grouping, but that one's going to be under budget, a fair amount. Article 9 is going to probably be right at budget, and so that one I am still a little concerned about, but not really. I just worry that there's an invoice I don't know about. Article 10 is debt. That one's pretty much done. It's all done 100%, so that one's good. And Article 11 is definitely going to be under budget. And so that's the general highlights of May.
At the beginning, Cheryl, you mentioned, was it 175? And
Yep.
what did you mention by that? Is that what is looking at a carryover potentially?
That's what I'm thinking, between 175 and 325, depending on how a couple of things fall. That's my estimate.
I had the same question. I didn't understand.
I knew you were gonna.
Well, no, I'm glad.
I did that mostly for you, John.
And I was confused, so appreciate you
Because
confusing
I
me.
knew that was gonna be your next question. So yes, that's my estimated carry forward.
So, recommendation to approve the May 2022 financials as presented. Motion by Rue, seconded by Amy. Any further discussion? All in favor? All in favor. The fourth item is compensation for additional COVID-19 stipend first semester.
So as you can remember, we've passed this a few times. We actually had another piece for before and after school, which we're holding off on at this point, but wanted to make sure that we got the chits to go through so that teachers would know and ed techs would know prior to the start of school year. You're going to see that it says it's both in December and June, and that's because the semester ends in the middle of January, so some of it falls into the June payment, but I just wanted to point that out. So this is as it was prior that we did all during COVID. So we're just trying to make sure we get that done before the school year starts so that we try to get the help that we need by these staff members.
And part of that is also realizing our current substitute situation and shortage, to be able to make sure that this is going to have us, positioned, especially in line with how it's been handled the last couple years bleeding into that. So it's a natural evolution.
Is there an actual language, or is CHIT another acronym? It's been around for a long time, and maybe there's no answer for that, and we just move on.
It is an acronym. It's in one of the
We
union
may-
contracts.
We may not want to know it, so.
I can't remember what it is, though.
You're throwing out these really difficult questions.
There's a lot of jokes about it.
I have a question.
Jen?
So just to clarify, does this come up per semester, the approval of these chits?
So we do them both in December, yeah, for you to approve them, yes, we're gonna,
Okay.
it will be the next semester, yes. That's how we've been doing it in the past, to pass it for a semester.
So will we identify the district needs and change the verbiage around the pay rates? Meaning this particular pay rate is being earmarked as a COVID-related expense, but it sounds like, I think we're all aware we have a substitute-related expense. So will that change, meaning transitioning away from, or is it because of where the funding's coming from?
So currently, if they're filling in for a teacher that is a COVID teacher or ESSER teacher, it gets charged off to ESSER. If they are covering for a local teacher, then they get charged off to local. It gets a little more confusing, but yeah.
So it would be until ESSER funds expire that we would continue to approve the chits as COVID?
Correct.
Okay.
But it's a changing the rate also, because we're multiplying it by 1.5, and that's part of to entice people to help us out.
And we also, looking at it through that lens of, with the ESSER funds, this upcoming school year being the second of 3 years, and then a third year, when that ends, you can probably see where that fee is probably going to work its way up to a natural transition into whatever the one is in the following contract.
Right.
So that it continue to have us be able to do that, so that it's going to allow people to want to do it. We also have the funding for us to be able to cover it, and we won't go backwards.
Okay. Recommendation to approve the compensation for additional COVID-19 stipend for semester as presented. So moved. I got one from Rue. All right, seconded by Mapes. All in favor? Whoops. Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Excellent.
And the fifth new item that we made an adjustment, addendum that we sent out earlier today is to ratify, is for the Sanford custodial contract 2022-2025, looking to ratify the tentative agreement on the Sanford custodial contract. As presented in executive session, we were a couple minutes late getting started for the 6 o'clock because we were in executive session where we had gone through that tentative agreement from start to finish to be able to answer any questions and be able to explain that tentative agreement.
Okay. Looking for a motion from,
Yeah, I'll make that motion that
All right.
Matt just so eloquently first.
by Matt, seconded by Rue. All right, any discussion? No more discussion, no thank you. Sorry. All in favor? All in favor? All right, staff appointments. No.
Sure, so.
Yeah, no
we
old
are-
business.
No old business for Kay, but I do have some resignations and some retirements to announce that have come on since our last meeting back in June. Marilyn Welton, Special Education Ed Tech 2. I want to thank Marilyn. She'd given a lot of time to the Sanford School Department in that role. Adam Booker, ELA Read 180 teacher. That was an ESSER position. Adam's been able to secure employment in another district. Linda Jackarone, Math Interventions at Tech 3 at the middle school. Lisa Bernier at Tech 1 at the middle school. Also, a big thank you to Lisa. She's given many years to the Sanford School Department. Megan McIntyre, kitchen personnel at the high school. Philip Amato, a second shift custodian at MCS in the middle school. Sandra McCusick headed back to Texas. She was the administrative assistant school year at Srtc. Holly Brown, a second grade classroom teacher. Also another opportunity for her. Nicole Cordo, boss is a school counselor. Tyler Coleman, seventh grade math teacher. Amy Sawyer, seventh grade ELA teacher. Karen Knight, longtime special education at CJL. Big thank you to Karen for all the years she's in the Sanford School Department. Doreen Dezo, kitchen personnel at CJL. Mark Wazanos, the JV basketball coach. Kitchen personnel at the middle school. Melanie Taylor, 1 year leave of absence for an ed tech special ed position at Carl J. Lamb. Lauren Laboro, high school English. Hannah Grant, first grade university ed tech 2 at Carl J. Lamb. Terry Crosby, kitchen personnel at CJL. Caleb Levy, ed tech 2. Some staff. Oh. Yeah, I think people could see those on the screen, so I'm not going to go back and repeat those. Thank you, sorry about that. Staff appointments, I'd like to announce the following appointments. Some of those, remember, if we went back to June, we had a couple that we nominated back in June that withdrew before starting. That would be Jason Smith as a technology support specialist and Kim Boucher as special education ed tech. 2, had some summer appointments, Kathy Halley, Renee St. Laurent, Christy Baker, Kaylee Colbeth, and Cynthia Pattershall at the Sanford High School Summer Teacher Program. And Tiffany Gemery, Special Education Ed Tech 1 at CJL. Lakeisha Anderson, Ed Tech 2 at the middle school. Ashley Walker, Extended School Year Ed Tech 2. Michelle Roy had Patrice Vaux also as part of the Extended School Year program this summer. Robin Lariviere, Technology Support for IT. Tracy Enking, Administrative Assistant, the school year at Sanford Pride. Abigail Grames, Ed Tech Literacy for kindergarten and pre-K. Sharon Gesner, Administrative Assistants for our Facilities and Maintenance Department. Ben Gagnon, Roxanne Shepard, Missy Baker, and Ann Hall were all extended school year substitutes. Patricia Ranowska, Accounts Payable Specialist at Central Office. Jane Curtin, Event Coordinator for the Performing Arts Center. Rebecca McCann, Math Interventionist Ed Tech 3. Ben Gagnon, we already announced him up earlier. Sarah Crabtree, Summer Drama Camp, as Beth Lambert mentioned. Devin Garabedian, kitchen personnel part-time at Carl J. Lamb. Phil Burbank, kitchen personnel high school. Lisa Silva, Julie Artgard, extended school year ed tech and ed tech substitute. Teresa Estroshen, kitchen personnel at MCS. We had a couple custodians withdrew their appointments, Robert Sprague and Maurice Howard. Shanique Jarrett, third shift custodian at the high school. Priscilla Abbott, school psychologist for the middle school. Cindy Donovan, kitchen personnel, 4.5 hours at Sanford Middle School. Maria Caples, kitchen personnel at the middle school, 3.5 hours. Angel Simino, long-term substitute art teacher at the high school. Peter O'Brien, Student Success Center, Ed Tech 3 at the high school. Amy McPherson, kitchen personnel at MCS. Nicole Centrano, kitchen personnel at Carl J. Lamb. Josh Ingram, head custodian, Sanford Middle School. Melissa Lathrop, Ed Tech 1, Sanford Pride. And Colleen Corderero, JV field hockey coach at the high school. Also, other fall coaching appointments. What's that? Oh, did I miss that one on M1? Yes, thank you. Kayla Tremblay, Ed Tech 2, for a one-year position at Carl J. Lamb. Kelly Nolette, Ed Tech 1 at Carl J. Lamb. And Maria Mondello, kitchen personnel at Carl J. Lamb. And those are people that came in since the agenda went out last Wednesday. And now I can move on to M2, coaching fall appointments with that. And so, hold on, I got it, I think, somewhere here. Thank you. Coaching appointments, Mike Fallon, head varsity football coach. Dan Stefanello, Mark Boisano, Joseph Masix, all high school assistant football coaches. Mike Kane, freshman football, and Anthony Nugent, assistant freshman football. Nate Smith, high school cross country. Lindsey Strout, assistant cross country. Rossi Kierson, high school golf. Marty Kane, high school field hockey. William Puffer, high school boys head soccer. Ellie Agresti, girls varsity soccer. Magnus Lewis, girls JV. Kendra O'Connell, fall high school cheering. Gerald Hall, head volleyball. Hunter Brannon, JV volleyball. Ashley Wyman as 7th grade field hockey, and Aaron Frazier as 8th grade field hockey. Diana Allen for cross country, 7th and 8th grade at the middle school. Amanda Roy, 7th grade girls soccer. Keith Gendron, 7th grade boys soccer. And Nate Mann as the JV boys soccer coach. Okay, so now I'm on N, and we have a couple changes in N. Announcing the following transfers. Allison Howard from an ESSER kindergarten position at MCS to a kindergarten teacher at MCS. Melissa Fagel, Sanford Pride kindergarten teacher to a kindergarten teacher at MCS. Melissa Fagel from kindergarten classroom, well, it looks like just announcing that transfer, going from kindergarten at MCS, moving to first grade at MCS. We moved Melissa right around quite a bit here as she was adjusting to the enrollments that we had talked about earlier when Steve was giving that information. Chris Hayday from Student Success Center to an ESSER Social Studies position. Jimmy Lassard from the head custodian at the middle school to the head custodian over at Community Adult Ed and Bridge Program at the Willard School. Lauren Williams, kitchen personnel at the middle school to kitchen personnel at MCS. Julia Stanton from an Ed Tech 2 at Pride to an Ed Tech 3 at Pride. Angela Avery, school counselor in an ESSER position, going to a school counselor position at the middle school. As Steve mentioned earlier, Bonnie Carmen from a kindergarten teacher at Pride to a pre-K teacher at Pride in an ESSER position. And a couple other ones, Anna Lane moving from a high school English teacher in an ESSER position to a high school English teacher, and Emily Provencher moving from an Ed Tech 1 in special ed to Ed Tech 3 special ed. And then I've got some staff nominations to announce. Remember, back in June, you gave me the ability to fill these vacancies in the summer. So contracts have been extended to the candidates below. Ethan Matthew, science teacher at the high school. David Wileninsky, grade 5 teacher at the middle school. Keith Gendron, and an ESSER math teacher at the middle school. Melissa Fagel, kindergarten 1 year, Pride. Catherine Soder, IEP coordinator at the middle school. Kevin Hill, grade 5 ESSER teacher. Jen Moore, special ed teacher at Bridge. Zachary Robinson, Bridge program teacher. Ashley Grubb, grade 6 ELA social studies teacher for the middle school. Donna Morrison as a high school math teacher. Maggie Wentworth, school counselor for Margaret Chase Smith. Jake Mills, grade 6 social studies position, ESSER at the middle school. Riley Calder, grade 7 ELA teacher at the middle school. Tom Dupuy, plumbing instructor, Srtc, and Christine Hogan, second grade teacher at MCS. And those are all those announcements. I will take a recommendation there, just to make it official, that the school committee can nominate them as professional staff as presented with a one-year probationary contract.
Recommendation to nominate the professional staff as presented with a one-year probationary contract.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor. Okay, we have no policies and procedures to discuss, no items for future agenda, and we have calendar announcements, Matt.
Sure. So as I mentioned, well, I didn't mention this, but we do have a school committee workshop this Wednesday with our 18+. That'll take place at 10 a.m. at the high school and Srtc. We'll do that once again in the cafeteria. That's a follow-up. We did that last year, and that was very helpful. So once again, looking forward to that. We do have the next leadership team meeting with the city for Paul and Amy will be Thursday, September 1st. That'll be at 10 a.m. As I mentioned earlier, the next Sanford High School Srtc Schedule Advisory Committee meeting will be August 22nd at 8:30 at Sanford High School and Sanford Regional Technical Center. We also have, as I mentioned earlier, new teacher orientation is going to take place next Tuesday down at Sanford High School and Sanford Regional Technical Center. We have in-service days on Wednesday, the 24th, and Thursday, the 25th. There'll be no school on Labor Day, Monday, and then our next two school committee meetings will be on Monday, September 12th, and Monday, September 19th. On September 12th, we'll look to have probably the high school, technical center, middle school, and athletics give us a opening of school report. And then the following Monday, we'll have our elementary schools in special ed and bridge program with an opening of school on the 19th for that. We do have, probably after the meeting, if I could just get people's schedules, we do have a couple, we're anticipating a couple student reentry hearings. These are students who, it appears, are on track to complete their plans for reentry, and we'd like to be able to try to have those meetings prior to the school year beginning. So that might be something that we can work out maybe sometime next week on people's schedules, depending on when they already may be attending some of our events. We may be able to tie that in to be able to help with that if that can be arranged. And those are the calendar announcements.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to adjourn this meeting at 7:39. Thank you to everybody.
Need a motion?
Oh,
Motion to, I'll make
I'm in
the
a
motion
rush.
to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by? All right, Mapes. All in favor? All in favor. 7:39. Whoa.